this blog post, child. George was feeling some feelings. Do you hear what I'm saying? I think he is already very traumatized by what happened with Game of Thrones season 8. So after what they did with season 2 of House of the Dragon, and the fact that he has seen that other bad changes are coming to the show in the future, I'm sure he's just like, well, I gotta say something. I gotta say something. Thank you to those of you who have been signing up to my Patreon. We are having a lot of fun over there. Exclusive videos that you only get over there. So check it out. Again, many thanks to those who have already done so. Now, spoilers are going to be ahead for season 3 and season 4 of House of the Dragon toward the middle of this video and onward, but I will give a warning when we get there, of course. Now, I'm sure there are some people watching this or seeing the news with George and saying, dang, George just needs to go ahead and be quiet and finish the books. Like, I've seen some people say that. And I get also that he is the one who signed over his stuff and his work to HBO or whatever. But at the same time, I understand his frustration, right? Especially if the book is right in front of people or right in front of these showrunners and all they have to do is open it up or call him, you know. But, and on top of that, George has expressed that he understands that things have to be changed for TV, like it just is what it is, budget constraints or whatever. But and in one of the previous videos he did speak about like what he considers legitimate changes and what he does, like changes that he doesn't consider to be legitimate. So there's already that understanding. But I like at the same time, I just understand his frustration of like, this is my work, y'all, and I gotta sit here and smile while y'all are butchering it, while HBO or whoever the showrunners are butchering it. He really had no problem calling Ryan Condal out like multiple times during this whole blog post. I was like, oh my gosh, like let's get into what he said. I'm gonna skip around a little bit. You can go ahead and read the full post if you want to. Link, of course, will be in my description. But I'm going to skip around just a little bit, even though I'm going to read most of it because I feel like we need the context for this conversation. So he said, back in July, I promised you some further thoughts about Blood and Cheese and Maelor the Missing after my commentary on the first 2 episodes of House of the Dragon, Season 2, A Son for a Son, and Rhaenyra the Cruel. So after he praised those episodes a bit, he then said, there was only one aspect of the episodes that drew significant criticism, the handling of Blood and Cheese and the death of Prince Jaehaerys. From the commentary I saw online, opinion was split there. The readers of Fire and Blood found the sequence underwhelming, a disappointment, watered down from what they were expecting. Viewers who had not read the book had no such problems. Most of them found the sequence a real gut punch, tragic, horrifying, nightmarish, etc. Some reported being reduced to tears. I found myself agreeing with both sides. In my book, Aegon and Heleana have 3 children, not 2. The twins, Jaehaerys and Jaehaera, are 6 years old. They have a younger brother, Maelor, who is 2. When Blood and Cheese break in on Heleana and the kids, they tell her they are debt collectors come to exact revenge for the death of Prince Lucerys, a son for a son. As Heleana has 2 sons, however, they demand that she choose which one should die. She resists and offers her own life instead, but the killers insist it has to be a son. If she does not name one, they will kill all 3 of the children. To save the life of the twins, Heleana names Maelor, but Blood kills the older boy Jaehaerys instead, while Cheese tells little Maelor that his mother wanted him dead. Whether the boy is old enough to understand that is not at all certain. That's not how it happens on the show. There is no Maelor in House of the Dragon. Only the twins, both of whom look younger than 6, but I am no sure judge of children's ages, so I can't be sure how old they're supposed to be. Blood can't seem to tell the twins apart, so Heleana is asked to reveal which one is the boy. And George brought up that, well, y'all could have just looked and checked, which I thought which I thought when I was watching this scene, I was like, why would y'all, if y'all really were this pressed to get the son, why would y'all check for yourself and then kill the son, you know? But asking this mother, you know, expecting her to tell you the truth, it's just, it was a lot. Instead of offering her own life to save the kids, Heleana offers them a necklace. Blood and Cheese are not tempted. Blood saws Prince Jaehaerys' head off. We are spared the sight of that. A sound effect suffices. In the book, he lops the head off with a sword. It is a bloody, brutal scene, no doubt. How not? An innocent child is being butchered in front of his mother. I still believe the scene in the book is stronger. And I'm going to pause here real quick because I feel like this issue, this kind of problem has been present with the showrunners since season 6 or 7 of Game of Thrones, because to me it's just like, okay, just because the scene is brutal and bloody and there's a child being butchered in front of his mom and the scene is graphic and shocking doesn't mean that it's automatically a strong scene. It reminds me of when Ditzy and Dizzy, you know who I'm talking about, D&D, Ditzy and Dizzy, it reminds me of when they said that they wanted to subvert expectations by having Arya kill the Night King. Like, yeah, you definitely subverted my expectations, all right, but was it any good? So I think the shock factor, shock value of certain things or certain plot points are glorified more than what the scene was actually supposed to do. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that, hopefully that makes sense. Either way, he goes on. The readers have the right of that. The two killers are crueler in the book. I thought the actors who play the killers in the show were excellent, but the characters are crueler, harder, and more frightening in Fire and Blood. In the show, Blood is a gold cloak. In the book, he's a former gold cloak stripped of his office for beating a woman to death. Book Blood is the sort of man who might think making a woman choose which of her sons should die is amusing, especially when they double down on the wanton cruelty by murdering the boy she tries to save. Book Cheese is worse too. He does not kick a dog, true, but he does not have a dog. And he's the one who tells Maelor that his mom wants him dead. I would also suggest that Heleana shows more courage, more strength in the book by offering her own life to save her son. Offering a piece of jewelry is just not the same. As I saw it, the Sophie's Choice aspect was the strongest part of the sequence, the darkest and most visceral. I hated to lose that. And judging from the comments online, most of the fans seemed to agree. Okay, so he covered that. Then this is where the Ryan Condal lashings start. Like, this is when the lashings start. So he said, when Ryan Condal first told me what he meant to do ages ago back in 2022 might be, I argued against it for all these reasons. I did not argue long or with much heat. However, the change weakened the sequence, I felt, but only a bit, and Ryan had what seemed to be practical reasons for it. They did not want to deal with casting another child, especially a 2-year-old toddler. Kids that young will inevitably slow down production, and there would be budget implications. Budget was already an issue on House of the Dragon. It made sense to save money wherever we could. Moreover, Ryan assured me that we were not losing Prince Maelor, simply postponing him. Queen Heleana could still give birth to him in season 3, presumably after getting with child late in season 2. That made sense to me, so I withdrew my objections and acquiesced to the change. I still love the episode and the Blood and Cheese sequence overall. Losing the Heleana's Choice beat did weaken the scene, but not to any great degree. Only the book readers would even notice its absence. Viewers who had never read Fire and Blood would still find the scenes heartrending. Maelor did not actually do anything in the scene after all. How could he? He was only 2 years old. There is another aspect of the removal of the young princeling, however, that, he's going to go ahead and talk about. But before that here, George gives a spoiler warning. And this is my spoiler warning too, because beyond this point in the video, in the blog, we're going to be massively spoiling season 3 and season 4 events, like big events. So just be aware of that. All right. So here George says, sometime between the initial decision to remove Maelor, a big change was made. The prince's birth was no longer just going to be pushed back to season 3. He was never going to be born at all. the younger son of Aegon and Heleana would never appear. Most of you know about the butterfly effect, I assume. And I'm going to skip around here because he kind of explains it. But he says at the bottom here, the lesson is that change begets change, and even small and seemingly insignificant alterations to a timeline or a story can have a profound effect on all that follows. So he gives this really in-depth explanation of how taking Maelor away, even though he was just 2 years old, a toddler, barely did anything, taking Maelor away had a lot of implications, a lot of effects on the story. He said, the readers among you may recall that when it appears that Rhaenyra and her blacks are about to capture King's Landing, Queen Alicent becomes concerned for the safety of Helena's remaining children and takes steps to save them by smuggling them out of the city. The task is given to 2 knights of the King's Guard. Sir Willis Fell is commanded to deliver Princess Jaehaera to the Baratheons at Storm's End, while Maelor is given over to Sir Rickard Thorne to be escorted across the Mander to the protection of the Hightower army on its way to King's Landing. Willis Fell delivers Jaehaera safely to the Baratheons at Storm's End, but Sir Rickard fares less well. He and Maelor get as far as Bitterbridge, where he is revealed as a King's Guard in a tavern called Hogshead. Once discovered, Sir Rickard fights bravely to protect his young charge and bring him to safety, but he does not even make it across the bridge before some crossbows bring him down. Prince Maelor is torn from his arms and then sadly ripped to pieces by the mob fighting over the boy and the huge reward that Rhaenyra has offered for his capture and return. Will any of that appear in the show? Maybe, but I don't see how. The butterflies would seem to prohibit it. You could perhaps make Sir Rickard's ward be Jaehaera instead of Maelor, but Jaehaera can't be killed. She has a huge role to play as Aegon's next heir. You could maybe make Maelor a newborn instead of a 2-year-old, but that would scramble up the timeline, which is a bit of a mess already. I have no idea what Ryan has planned, if indeed he has planned anything. But given Maelor's absence from episode 2, the simplest way to proceed would be just to drop him entirely, lose the bit where Alicent tries to send the kids to safety, drop Rickard Thorne, or send him with Willis Fell so that Jaehaera has 2 guards. And that sounds like exactly what they're about to do. That's exactly what they're about to do. From what I know, that seems to be what Ryan is doing here. It's simplest, yes, and may make sense in terms of budgets and shooting schedules, but simpler is not better. The Bitterbridge scene has tension, suspense, action, bloodshed, a bit of heroism, and a lot of tragedy. Rickard Thorne is a tertiary character at best. Most viewers, as opposed to readers, will never know he's gone since they never knew him at all. But I rather liked giving him his brief moment of heroism, a taste of the courage and loyalty of the King's Guard, regardless of whether they are black or green. The butterflies are not done with us yet, however, in the book. When word of Prince Maelor's death and the grisly manner of his passing reaches the Red Keep, that proves to be the thing that drives Heleana to suicide. She could barely stand to look at Maelor, knowing that she chose him to die in the Sophie's Choice scene, and now he's dead in truth. Her words having come true, the grief and guilt are too much for her to bear. In Ryan's outline for season 3, Heleana still kills herself for no particular reason. There is no fresh horror, no triggering event to overwhelm the fragile young queen. In the next paragraph, he talks about how Heleana was loved by the small folk, but Rhaenyra was not. So when rumors began to arise that Heleana did not kill herself, but was rather murdered at Rhaenyra's command, the commoners quickly believed them, right? So then that results in the bloody riot. It's the beginning of the end for Rhaenyra's rule over the city, the storming of the dragon pit, all of that. It just culminates into Rhaenyra leaving and fleeing the city. So George says Maelor by himself means little. He is a small child, does not have a line of dialogue, does nothing of consequence but die. But where and when and how, that does matter. Losing Maelor weakened the end of the blood and cheese sequence, but it also cost us the Bitter Bridge scene with all its horror and heroism. It undercut the motivation for Heleana's suicide, and that in turn sent thousands into the streets and alleys screaming for justice for their murdered queen. None of that is essential, I suppose, but all of it does serve a purpose. It all helps to tie the storylines together so one thing follows another in a logical and convincing manner. What will we offer the fans instead once we've killed these butterflies? I have no idea. I do not recall that Ryan and I ever discussed this. Back when he first told me they were pushing back on Aegon's second son. Maelor himself is not essential, but if losing him means we also lose Bitter Bridge, Heleana's suicide, and the riots, well, that's a considerable loss. And there are larger, more toxic butterflies to come if House of the Dragon goes ahead with some of the changes being contemplated for season 3 and 4. So yeah, I mean, I think right now, George is probably just fighting a losing battle with HBO. I just think they're trying to pump as much. I think they're trying to pump as much Game of Thrones content out and get as much coin in. And it don't matter if we move around plot lines and it looks sloppy and whatever. We know people gonna click. We know people gonna watch. The budget is already fake tight. Even I'm like, constraints on the budget. If y'all don't give. Anyway. I'm like, it's HBO. Like, y'all gonna spend the money y'all want, whatever y'all want to spend on, but whatever. So I think they're just like, look, it's a money grab. Like, these storylines don't really have to make as much sense. We just hit the main points that you hit in your books, girl. It doesn't matter how we get there, George, and we're gonna get there and move on. And so I think right now, George is swinging and fighting, but it's probably not gonna mean nothing as long as the money is flowing into the executives at the top. As long as they're making money, I don't think they're going to change anything, but it's just so sad to see that. I mean, he wrote out this long blog post of just one change to show y'all, to show these showrunners, to show everybody like how just one small, like Maelor not being there, how just one small thing can affect the whole plot and how it ties, the way that it ties together, how well it ties together. You know, and it's like, you're going to do all this explaining, and these guys sitting at the steering wheel of this show, they are not going to care. Sarah Hess going to be sitting there looking. I mean, Sarah Hess going to continue to make us mad. Ryan Condal going to. I mean, I just don't think they're going to change anything. And honestly, to me, what George is explaining in this blog is a very basic tenet of storytelling. Like, one of the most basic. You see what I'm saying? The most basic foundations of storytelling. And if your showrunners don't understand that, girl, you writing all this stuff down won't make a difference. Because that's the type of stuff they should have understood before they even applied to get this kind of job. Like, before they even started fully writing for real. Like, that's one of the things. I'm not talking about writing the script for the show. I'm talking about writing in general. What George is explaining is one of the basic things that you learn before you start writing, as you are beginning your journey with writing. It's not something that needs to be explained to you when you're this big showrunner, or should have to be explained to you when you're this big showrunner on HBO. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. So yeah, I'm sure, because I've seen so many comments about like, oh my goodness, George is over here talking when he should be writing. Like, I'm sure there's some people who are going to be a little annoyed by what George is doing and how he's been fighting, but I'm just like, whatever, like, we could say whatever, but like, I cannot imagine creating something and watching it be just, you know, like, it's one thing to watch your work be adapted for TV, is another thing to watch them strip everything out of it or things out of it that you feel are pillars of the entirety of the story in general. So let me know what y'all think about this. It was scathing. He came out swinging. Love y'all so much. Make sure you check out my Patreon at patreon.com/AvatarAdrian. And I'll check y'all later. Peace. Make sure that you're going to www.zeraxia.com. When you join the wait list there on the site, you will be the first to be notified when I drop my sequel. Also, you'll immediately get chapter 1 of my upcoming sequel of the upcoming book sent to your email as a PDF. So check that out. Also, this is a different excerpt from my upcoming book. So you definitely want to pause to read if you're trying to get your life. Keep in mind that this upcoming book, this sequel, is following up the first book that is already released called Zoraxia, Wrath of the God King. I released it a few years ago. It was my introduction to writing fantasy and stuff. So just go easy on me. But either way, as you can see here, it's given 4.9 stars. It's given 4.9 stars. So yeah, check out Zoraxia, Wrath of the God King while you wait for Zoraxia, The Vengeance of Coldwind, right? And go to Zoraxia.com, sign up, join the waitlist, get your free chapter. Thank you so much.